This live stream brought to you by the Excelsior Citizen and these generous sponsors. Our Excelsior Springs Hospital, where better care is right in your backyard. The Simmons Sales Team, your hometown realtors.
Having amended the agenda, entertain a motion to adopt the agenda at this time. First by Caleb, second by Jill. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 7-0. This time, will you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda. So moved. First by Troy.
Second.
Second by Jill. All those in favor? Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next up is recognition. Dr. Mullen.
If it pleases the board, I'd like to recognize both the district and 2 employees for receiving Community Excellence Awards through the Town and Country Leader. So we have Ross Rhea was selected as the best teacher, and Mr. Richie Marsh was recognized as best coach. So we want to recognize them. And then also the district was selected and recognized as the best place to work. We got 2 plaques as well. We'll go around and present those both to Mr. Rhea and Mr. Marsh. And then also they wanted me to share with the board that there will be a celebration at Ray County Museum on January 22nd from 5 to 7 p.m. For networking with the other winners and to pick up any additional certificates. So congratulations to the district and the board. Thank you for your leadership. Yep, Ray County Museum.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you to the Town and Country Museum. All right, next up is MSBA Delegate Report. Mr. McKenna.
Well, we got a good video to watch.
Welcome to the January edition of the Missouri School Boards Association's Board Report. The start of the 2024-25 school year was a challenging one for many. In a 10-day period in 2024, Missouri had 310 threats of violence to our public and private schools. The threats disrupted learning, distressed students, families, and teachers, and have ongoing costs. On December 5th and 6th, MSBA Center for Education Safety team hosted a 2-day safety summit titled The Secret to Great Crisis Communications and Emergency Planning. The summit was designed for a wide variety of school leaders, and the content focused on crisis planning for school settings. Attendees were able to learn from several of the nation's leading experts in crisis management. Oliver R1 board member and MSBA Vice President Paula Hubbard attended the summit and said that as a school board member, it is vital to receive continuous training on school safety.
As a school board member, I think it's just tantamount in our responsibilities to know what's happening in school safety. Is changing all the time. The technology is changing all the time. How we can do it better is changing all the time. The more we know and the more we can take back to our own district only helps us keep our kids and our staff safe. And that, as a school board member, as a school board leader and a community leader, is one of my primary responsibilities.
Hubbard says that school board members are a large part of a team that sets the tone for school safety in their districts.
I think one of the most important things I could do as a board member is help set the priority for our district. We designate the dollars in our budget. We allocate the time in our board meetings to discuss this. We set the policies that the entire district operates by. And so if it's not a priority to us, it can't be a priority for the district. We can't be just allocated to one person, one designated person to handle safety for the entire district. It takes all of us. It takes our school, it takes our community, it takes our region. We have to be able to respond. We have to think ahead. We have to plan ahead.
According to Hubbard, investing in school safety sends a message to the community.
I hope it says to our community that our priorities are right. That the most important thing to us is you and your children. If we can't protect our children, what else are we doing? That's our priority. And so when we ask our community for help and we say, this is what else we need, we've told that story over and over, that we care about you, we're going to demonstrate how we care about your safety, and so we need to partner together to do some things. And so sometimes when parents can't get into the building as quickly as they would like, and we hear that sometimes, why do I have to go through the locked door? Why do I have to have a background check? It's because we care about your children. And we've told that story enough that we have fans in our community who can also tell our story, who can say, no, we need this in our community. We've got to keep ourselves safe. We've got to keep our kids safe.
Kelly Wachel, Chief Communications Officer in the Park Hill School District, says that continuous learning on school safety is a community demand.
We know that safety is a priority in our communities and our school districts, and safety is not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing, evolving emotion, feeling, fact, procedural piece, and so it's a continual learning piece. We're always learning best practices, what we can do differently, how we can adjust, how we evaluate what's working well. And so our community demands from us that we know a lot about safety and we know a lot about how to respond and take care of people to keep them safe. So when our community demands that, wants that, rightfully so, it's our job to continue learning and continue practicing and continue evolving with what the best safety procedures, practices, solutions are.
Visit the MSBA website for information about upcoming safety trainings and events. As always, money matters. MSBA has upcoming workshops and webinars to help you plan for your next school budget. On Wednesday, February 5th, MSBA is hosting the Budget Planning and Preparation Workshop in Columbia. This workshop provides something for all administrators who are responsible for developing and presenting the annual budget. And on Wednesday, March 5th, don't miss the Long Range Financial Planning and Budgeting webinar. Plus, register now for MSBA's Spring Advocacy Series. This series helps you connect the classroom to the Capitol and make an impact in shaping education policy. The large incoming class of freshman legislators in the Missouri House and Senate means your insights as a local school leader will be critical, and your connections can really make a difference. Log on to the Advocacy Lunch and Learns for the latest updates in the legislative session and plan to attend MSBA's Advocacy Day and Student Showcase with your school board to meet your legislators at the Capitol on March 11th. For more information about all of these events, visit the MSBA website. That's it for this month. Thank you for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and we'll see you in February for the next MSBA Board Report.
Do you have anything further, Darren?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. No visitors, Lisa? All right. Moving into our discussion and action items. First up is the middle school building report. Dr. Call.
Well, hello everybody. Sorry about my voice. Got singing a little bit too much this weekend, so I just wanted to give you an update on some of the things that are going on at the middle school. It's been a fantastic first semester. I said this last year, or I said some people say it for me last year. It feels different in the middle school. It did last year as far as the environment goes, but now the rigor, what we're seeing in the classrooms. If you walk around into classrooms and see what the students are learning, see that they are learning, that they're engaged, it's palpable. And our hallways continue to be quiet and peaceful and calm. So it's what we want a middle school to be right now. I will tell you that we've got some work cut out for us. First off, I'd like to commend our math teachers. As you can see from some of the data that we've got up here, last year with 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade in math proficiency on STAR data, our 6th grade at 56% of our kids were proficient or advanced in math, according to the STAR data. This year, they've increased to 59% off of our first semester our STAR assessment data. But 7th grade and 8th grade, we've seen remarkable gains. 7th grade, last year they were at 41%. This year they're at 64%. We saw a 23% gain for those students in math. And in 8th grade, the proficiency went from 44% to 68%, 24% gains. I will tell you that when you look at those numbers, the 6th grade proficiency that you see there, that's kudos to the elementaries for sending us up students who are already prepared for math. They're doing a fantastic job down there getting ready and sending them up to us. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you for doing that. As far as what's going on in 7th and 8th grade, our teachers are rocking it and they're doing a great job with this. We'd like to be higher, we'd like to keep pushing that, and the other thing that we like is we'd like that to translate over to MAP scores and state assessments. So that's something that we're going to be looking at and growing as we go. The next thing that has been helping our students is our after-school tutoring program. With after-school tutoring, right now we've had 46% of our students going to after-school in the first semester, going to tutoring. One of the things that's helped with that is down a little bit further, our counselors have taken it upon themselves to shift their focus from mental health with students to academic health. We have a lot of professionals in our building that can help with mental health. Our counselors are now helping with academic help. And one of the things that we're seeing as a result of them moving towards academic help and pulling kids who are struggling in classes is we're seeing that the reports of anxiety and depression are going down because the students are getting the help academically that they need in the classroom. So that's been fantastic to see. And our counselors are making great gains with the students and having good conversations with those kids who are struggling academically. We also rolled out for the second quarter, we waited a little bit to roll out Canvas, which I feel like was a good plan. Canvas had some bugs to be worked out. And when we rolled it out to parents, we rolled it out with information that made it really easy for them to get online and see their students' grades. With Canvas, they can see the pre, the during, and the post of the students' grading. And we're still working on, I'd like to give a shout out to Jeannie Williams, our registrar, because one of the things that she did was she went through, we had some questions about Canvas and Power School. She went through and she just checked every single grade to make sure that every grade that went home was correct. And she did 551 students, 8 classes. She did that, it was perfect. She did a great job with it. And Canvas ended up being a great tool for us. So this is going to be a good thing. As far as effective teaching and learning, like I said, the counselors do a great job personalizing academic planning. They're giving those proactive check-ins with students. And the collaboration with the teachers, they're calling home and talking to parents and letting them know, hey, we're working with your student, we're getting them the help they need with tutoring, and then checking on anything else that they need. We've also had a decrease in student discipline incidents overall, a lot less discipline, a lot less tardies. One of the things that's helped us with tardies has been e-hall pass. We implemented e-hall pass. Basically what it is when the students want to go to the restroom or to the nurse, they put in on their computer that they need to go. They turn that computer screen around, the teacher can see that they have a pass and it's timed. And then they're able to not interrupt class, just quickly exit the classroom, go to the restroom, go to the nurse, and then come back. And as soon as they come back, they check back in. It logs every single student's, like, just that they've walked out of class and come back. We know who's in the hallway. We can look on our phones and see these students are supposed to be in the hallway. So if we see someone who's out that's not supposed to, we can ask some questions. It's been a great device for us, great thing to help us with tardies. We've almost eliminated tardies. The kids are going to class. It's been great. And as far as bullying and some of the other things that we're seeing, we still see some of it. We still have it reported to us. We're still using Sprigio. It's been a great tool to help us get in front of that. And one of the things that we're doing, rather than be reactive to that bullying and punish our way out, now we're able to go and sit down with the students and help them work it out. Because what we want to see, you don't see a lot of the bullying at the high school, I assume. since the last time I was up there. It's not as prevalent as it is down at the middle school. But one of the things is we've got all these kids, 550 kids that come in from 3 different schools that have already established their cliques, already established their friends group, and then they come in and they don't really have the tools to get along. So we've just been working with them on the tools they need to get along with each other. And hopefully the students that we're going to be sending up to the high school, they are going to be good friends, because that's one of the things we tell them. You're going to be friends with these people for 7 years. You better get along with them. So finally, our third goal is collaborative climate culture. We spent a lot of time with our PD this January talking about our culture in our building. And one of the things that we did was we wanted to know if our strategies, the things that we're putting in front of the kids, if our strategies were just getting eaten up by our culture, if they're effective or not because of what our culture is. And it was really interesting because looking at our culture, we realized that we were into order. We wanted order at the middle school, and we wanted purpose. 2 things: purpose with altruism and the future. Order, we just wanted to make sure that things went well, okay, that it was methodical and things went well. The thing that we challenged with the staff was, and the staff came up with this, that they wanted to challenge themselves towards learning. They wanted a culture of learning, so that triangle would be the culture at the middle school. And so that is our challenge for our second semester, is to start to evolve our culture towards learning, expansion, exploration, the things that make the kids really want to do well when they get up to the high school and have a learning plan. That's another thing that the counselors have been doing, is they've been working with Missouri Connections on a plan for every student to study and get their courses ready. So that's been fantastic. With that, I think we're doing really good things right now at the middle school. It's been a very positive first semester. It continues. We've had a great start already. Our first day back, I'll just brag on these kids for a second. Our first day back, we did not give out one schedule. Not one schedule. The kids went and found their schedules. They're starting to learn to be self-reliant, and it's great to see. So kudos to them. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Popham? All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you. Great work. All right. Next up is Mr. Eric Marshall, the Midland Empire.
Thanks for having me in today. I'm sitting at my desk, minding my own business, working, and I get a phone call out of the blue from Midland Empire Conference athletic director. Starts asking me questions. Would you guys be interested in our conference? I'm like, well, this is the first I've heard of any of this. So I get off the phone, I go talk to Dr. Wickham. A few minutes later, a different athletic director from a different school calls me, starts asking me questions. So when the third one called, I knew that this was pretty serious, and they were having conversations about us. And I mean, this was out of the blue. So obviously, I get on the phone, talk to Dr. Tomlinson. He's gotten a phone call from someone as well. So at the superintendent level. So, you know, they were obviously having very serious conversations and looking to expand their conference. And they thought of us as someone who might fit well. So through those conversations, we feel like we owe it to our kids to explore, well, what is the Midland Empire Conference? So, you know, the first thing that we talked about was the different things we need to consider. You know, who are the schools? The enrollments are huge. Driving distance is, we know what that is. And the format that they set up their conference. So the first thing I want to do is show you our current status within the Suburban Conference And I just picked football, basketball, baseball, and volleyball. And I plugged this in. There's our enrollment numbers. And you can see where we fall as far as, you know, the teams that we're competing against currently. As you can see, in football, you know, Tonka's class 5 and the rest are class 4. In basketball, they're all class 5 and we're the lone class 4, as well as baseball, volleyball, and you'll find it all the way across the board in all the sports. When Coach Grime started investigating the Suburban Conference, I backed him 100%, I'm not going to lie, from the assistant principal role and a former Suburban Conference athletic director. At that time, we were in those same classifications as those schools. Just in the last few years, our numbers, that, you know, the 20 kids, when we drop, it drops our classification. And now we're competing all year long against schools that we don't face in the postseason. Our regular season should be nothing more than practice, getting ready for district play, postseason playoffs, if you will. So I've then looked up where we match up against the Midland Empire Conference. If you can see the enrollment there, we would become the largest school in that conference, kid to kid. Within the classifications, we match up with these schools. This year, looking back at our fall and now what's coming into our winter, these are the teams that we're facing. We're kind of in a geographically, we get shipped down to I-70 with Odessa, the old MRBC West, and Oak Grove, or we get shipped north to the Midland Empire Conference. There's distance, but there was distance in the MRBC as well. But these are the schools, you know, this is basically our softball district going in. We were, I don't want to say this wrong, I think we were 18-8, and we got the 5th seed. Okay, there was another school, I mean, we were as good as all the other schools, but then it comes down to a vote when you go to district seat meetings. You know, those conferences, dude, they vote together, and it was us versus the MEC in the softball playoffs. So they're very like schools compared to us. And if we flip back and look at the Suburban Conference, are we like those schools? I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm showing you guys. I'm just trying to show you the information that I've tried to dig up about this conference. I know some of the biggest concerns are conference format. Again, go back to Coach Grime. When we went into the Suburban Conference, it was a single round robin format. So that means we played Kearney, Tonka, Smithville, all those schools one time a year. Since then, since I've come in, it has become a double round robin format, and I've been told it's going to remain a double round robin format. So what does that mean? It means that we have less say in what our schedule looks like. It chews up a lot of our non-cons. When we play against the Midland Empire Conference, we'll play every school one time per year. With that being said, that also means that we're only traveling one time a year. So boys basketball, girls basketball, I actually went up and met with the Midland Empire Conference ADs, and they're already doing it to some extent, but I think that they're very interested in shifting it to, like, I requested, could we have like Friday night lights for basketball, where if we go to Maryville this year, we're bringing everybody. We're bringing the JVs and the varsities, and it's a power night, And if our fans are traveling to Maryville, they can sit and watch at least 2 of the games. A lot of the schools in the Midland Empire Conference do have 2 gyms. So we could play JV in one gym, varsity, have boys and girls back to back, the varsity doubleheader to the JV doubleheader. So kind of get more bang for your buck in the travel. And I'm not trying to mislead you guys on the conference travel, the average miles. I'm not, because we're comparing apples and oranges. We're talking about going to each school every year within suburban, and we're only going to half the schools. But in talking with my coaches, they're very unhappy where we're at. I don't want to sound soft, but it's not quite the level playing field that we thought it was going to be. There is travel involved, and we have to pick up. We're playing the double round robin versus the single round robin. And we have to pick up some non-con games, but we can pick up the Lawsons, the Lexingtons, and we can actually go face some old conference foes in the MRVC West as well. It's going to require us a little bit more scheduling with the non-cons, but it can help us ensure, for example, basketball, we don't know if we're going to get shipped north or we're going to get shipped south. So maybe our non-cons, we go pick up the Oak Groves, the Odessas, and the possibilities down there. So we can have those common opponents. And it's single round robin for every sport all year long. So I do see that as a plus. And it gives us a little bit more say in our conference, non-conference games, because within the Suburban Conference, they assign us who we are going to play. And they assign us, when you guys look at the schedule, you go, what did Marshall do? Why are we playing? And really the biggest thing I feel like we didn't think about was the junior high level. Junior high schedules, I've heard lots of complaints about. They hand us a schedule. It is done by the conference and it's done geographically. So all those schools in the Northland, that's who we're going to play. We're going to play Liberty. We're going to play Liberty North. We're going to play Park Hill. We're going to play North Kansas City schools. That's who we play within our. You're not going to see us go south of the river, and it's close and it's easy geographically as far as travel. But I don't feel good about putting our kids out there against the Liberties and the Liberty Norths and the Park Hills. So the middle school level, I think, would really affect us. I don't know exactly if we want to travel and play Maryville in the middle school level, but I'm sure we can find some games with some local schools to play us. So the driving distances I put on the last page, and these are the miles from my desk in my office at the high school. So Maryville's a long haul. That's going to be a long night. We're going to have to feed the kids and all those things, but it's in a high school career, you're going to go twice to Maryville. Okay? So that's what I know. I know that there was a unanimous vote for us, inviting us to join. In conversations with Dr. Thompson and Dr. Bowmore, they asked me to investigate the best I could. I got invited up to meet with all the ADs. Cameron could become a rival school in my mind. That's one thing I feel like we're lacking, is that rival school that's a like school. It's like us. So that's what I know about the Midland Empire Conference. It's more than I ever expected to learn about the Midland Empire Conference. But I think it's a solid conference. I think, like I said, I think our kids will look at those kids as we're the same kids, coming from the same type of school, same type of communities. But that's what we know. I know that they're probably both, and I've informed the Suburban Conference that we're talking to the Midland and our conference as well. Been transparent with everyone because that's the right thing to do. This is year one of a 2-year cycle. So next year we will flip our schedules that we're competing in right now. Okay, so it wouldn't, if that was a jump that the board would like to do, we're talking 2 years down the road. Okay, just for time frame. So that's all I had. Do you have any questions?
Why not just go back to the old conference?
It's a possibility. If that's something, I mean, that's something we know.
I thought about that too. I asked you that question, in fact, before the meeting, because way back in the day when I had children still in high school competing in sports, that's the conference we were in. And by golly, we would complain when we had to drive to Pleasant Hill, or we had to drive to Oak Grove or Harrisonville, but we were a lot more on the same level as far as competition was.
I know that they were looking at expanding. I know that Marshall is wanting to get in there. I mean, we're
Boonville, I think
The
even
distances,
was it
Boonville is trying to get in.
I did
Clinton
a
was trying to get
comparison.
Did they? Yeah, basically.
I did a comparison of MRVC, the schools we played back then, with this. It's very comparable. The Maryville is an outlier. That's an outlier. But if they add Boonville, that's going to be the same thing if we go to the other conference. I was just curious too if you've had any feedback or you've had any conversations with like parents about the possibility.
I usually hear when they're not happy about being in the Suburban Conference.
Right. I think that's what
You know, the one thing I think I would look at if I was a coach on the bus, riding back and forth, you know, one, you're heading south through the city every time. You know, you know, the other way, you're heading north on the interstate and, you know, 35, 36 highways. I feel like you're not heading towards the congestion.
No. You'll make better time.
You know, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think they're very comparable. Just who do you want to be affiliated with? So.
Interesting. When Troy and I were in high school 40 years ago, Liberty was our rival because we were comparable in size and everything.
Yes.
They just have had huge growth. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you know, within the Suburban Conference, you know, I've talked extensively with my coaches, and they're not happy. They don't, you know, we're dealing with schools nearly twice our size, and you know, a conference is not meant for postseason. It doesn't. All conferences are they protect their sister school, if you will, and they protect you to make sure you can get a schedule. That's what they're for. And in football, like we're playing up and we get bonus points for losing. But what's it doing to our kids? You know, we're trying to build confidence. We're not trying to gain bonus points by playing someone up a classification, or in some cases 2 classifications.
I would think too, with an adjustment with conferences, you might see an increase in student participation in a lot of these sports too.
Very
More
possible.
opportunities.
Well, I think it's a fair point. We were talking about even when we were in school, like we haven't really had a rival school because they're just Kearney was a little bit, Liberty, you know, there hasn't been a solid school that everybody can get behind. Like, yeah, we play them. It's a good battle. We haven't had that in a while. So that's a very valid point in my mind.
And I'm not trying to sell this any way, shape, or form. I'm just trying to give you a perspective with the information I have. You know, I think that the Friday Night Lights thing is exciting. You know, everyone always ties that to football. You know, I don't see it that way. I'm talking about bringing communities together to compete and have a good time, and, you know, it's entertainment. It should be entertainment for our community. When Maryville comes here, bring them all on, and we'll have our cheering sections, and we'll have a fun Friday night, you know. It would almost be like having a tournament. I mean, I feel like it brings money into our city. People will come here, they'll come here and eat, and they'll hang out, and just make an evening of it, so.
Will our district still go through Smithville and Kearney, for like football,
Yeah.
for example?
Football, we're in the bottom of Class 4 as far as enrollment. They're in the top of Class 4. You know, I don't see us dropping to Class 3, but the championship factor within this, within the private schools, they've been in play now for about 3 years, and it's you gain points over a 6-year window, and that's what forces you up and down. And so, for example, St. Pius went from Class 3 to Class 5. And so when the private schools have success, it goes up and it starts forcing other public schools down, is what's happening. I don't think we've seen the full effects of championship factor points for private schools yet. So it could.
Does this basically mean we would be replacing St. Pius in the Midland Empire Conference then?
Essentially, that's exactly, it's plug and play is what it is. We would be a plug and play for St. Pius. You know, they've been in this conference for a number of years now, and you know, they've been traveling the distances, and you know, they're not getting out because of the distances. They're getting out because of this championship factor. They're getting bumped up classifications. They're looking at someplace else to go because they're playing down a classification, or in some cases 2 classifications. I mean, in LeBlanc, you know, that's the oddity. They're a very small school, and they're below. I mean, they have 8-man football. So, but we would play them in every other sport.
Eric, do all those schools have all the sports we have?
They do. They do.
Is this the first we've heard of this, and this has been brought to Excelsior that I'm aware of? Like, we've never been, as this, like this conference?
Recorded by, yeah, that's the first I've heard of. And I think our enrollment probably kept them from approaching us before. You know, I could be wrong. Is our numbers, like, we're looking at like 20 less kids next year? Brett, do you know?
That's probably about right.
So we're looking at 20 less in the high school next year for our enrollment numbers that we turn in. And also, MISHA's changed. MISHA used to be a 2-year cycle. You would get a line for 2 years, and that's where you stayed. And now it's every single year. We have to turn our numbers every single year. So it does flex.
And we're still with sub-7 for just the next year, locked in?
I'm sorry.
We're still locked in with sub-7 for just another year or 2 years?
One more. This was year 1 of the cycle. So next year we reciprocate dates, and you know, switch home and away.
When would Midland Empire need to get a decision from our board to be able to accept
They're
this?
pretty antsy, I'm not gonna lie.
So we would, 26, 27 would be our first
Yes, sir.
year in the Midland.
Yes, sir. And like they're already, like Suburban Conference and the Midland are already, we do the schedules 2 years in advance. And so they're already scheduling for that next cycle. They're already starting. And I told them I need to speak with my board.
Well, and when we were in the MRVC, we played Savannah.
Yes.
I mean, they were non-conference,
Yeah, they were
but we still
non-conference.
played them. We always played the St. Joe schools.
Yes. Savannah's in our district.
Yeah, so even this year we played the St. Joe schools.
Yes.
In different sports. So, and we used to play Cameron not that long ago. So, really Maryville, and we played Maryville in the past. So, I mean, it's not like these are new schools to us that we've never been to or never seen. So,
right.
Another thing we talked about is if we do have an away game at Maryville, can we not have an away game at Savannah the same year? so that we can alternate those every other year, which would also reduce some of the travel.
Yes, the long trips will never match up. So, you know, we'll try to avoid those. If we're going to Benton, then Lafayette will come here, for example. If we go to Maryville, Savannah would come here. So we'll never have, oh, we got the long trips this year. You know, that won't happen.
I don't get complaints about how far we're traveling. I get complaints about our kids aren't matching up to who we're playing. And the parents are struggling with that, I think. So, I mean, that's what I hear. I don't know what you guys hear.
I think that's true now. I think if you look back 5 years ago, people were complaining about the travel.
It was the travel.
So,
It's not
you
the
know,
travel.
it's
It's
suburban.
That was the main
play.
reason why we switched to the sub
And they were
seven.
wanting
That
to
was
add
one of the deciding
Bolivar,
factors.
Clinton, so, I mean, it
I'm
was-
sorry, was that?
That was one of the deciding factors why we went back to the sub seven, was because the MRVC wasn't travel at the time. That was the problem.
Yeah,
That was the
Well,
big problem.
I think the MRVC expanded, and then they brought in Clinton.
Clinton and that guy.
You know, now we have the Warrensburg and the Clinton trip, and
They were talking Bolivar.
Boonville.
yeah, it was tough. I mean,
Where in the world?
when I first came to Excelsior, I was traveling to supervise those events. I was like, oh my, they're long, but again, trying to not make the same mistakes in the past, you know, and understanding that the Midland Empire does do only a single round robin. That, I think, you know, if I'm supervising or I'm coaching or I'm a parent, I think I can live with that. To compete against what we would consider more like schools, size-wise.
I have a couple questions. One is kind of a comment and just a consideration. So I love the Friday Night Light sentiment. If you have multiple teams playing in 2 different gyms at the same time, it's just an example that you gave. Some families have students that play on both teams at the same time, and I could see that being feedback that comes from parents that I can't watch my kid because they're playing in that gym over there versus this gym, and the parents have to divide and conquer. Not all kids have 2 parents to do that with. So that's just something for us to consider. I love the sentiment about it, and the hubbub that will come with all of that is just something for us to consider for our families.
What I used to do when I would have these mass games, these 4 games, is I would choose one gym, and we would start, say at 4 o'clock. Say boys JV basketball starts at 4 o'clock. And then in the high school gym, I would stagger it and go at 4:30 for the girls, JV. And then they would play. So we'd have 1 game in the small gym. We'd end up having 3 games in the big gym. So your conflict would be a JV boys game and a JV girls game playing at the same time.
Yeah,
That
it still can.
Yes.
The issue can still exist.
It could.
But
Absolutely.
I get what you're saying. Like I'll stagger, you know, or we would stagger it to help solve for that a little bit. The other thing I wanted to ask was, with the mileage being longer, what are our transportation financial implications? Will our transportation costs be higher, or will they not because we're not going to as many back and forth away games, because 1 year you're going away, 1 year you're coming back? Like, what does that look like from a transportation financial cost?
I think it would, for one, if you're looking at just conference expenses, obviously you're going to have as many away games. But the fact is, and like I said, I didn't want to be misleading on that one slide, because we have to get non-con games to fill those, right? So it depends on your non-con game. So when I'm filling out a schedule for a coach, and I'm like, Coach White, give me your top 10 teams that you want to play in your non-conference games. You know, you're going to give me a list, and I want them numbered. Who's the one non-con team you want to play, number 1 and 2, you know, all the way down. And then I just start attacking those teams and saying, you know, if your number 1 team's Lawson, then I'm going, hey, Lawson, we really want to play you guys. And I try to work that out, and I work that way. I don't know that it's going to be an enormous change. I really don't. I think the expense is the expense. We're still traveling, but our non-cons would be more local, and it's our selection.
So do you build that based on a budget? Do you build your travel around your non-con teams?
I have not in the past. We have not in the past.
So you're saying yes, there could be financial implications?
There could be.
Okay. I had one other question for you. So you have announced retirement, and congratulations for that.
Thank you.
That'll be exciting. If we were to move that direction, not knowing who's going to be a replacement today, what are the challenges? Like, what is the next person going to say that they say, man, I wish Eric Marshall would have thought of? What is that? What are those things?
What is the next challenge?
Or do you think everybody who comes behind you is going to be like, yes, this was the right decision?
Well, based on all of our coaches and the extensive conversations I've had, they're not happy in the Suburban Conference. And we sent out surveys and asked them. And, we even made them open-ended. Some of the replies were, it doesn't matter as long as we're not in the Suburban Conference. I think that they're feeling a little overwhelmed in the Suburban Conference itself. So I don't think that there's going to be backlash a year from now from the coaches side. Parents, they've gotten used to traveling pretty local. They may complain about it, but they're also, let's remind, these are the schools that we have to beat and compete against in district play. In every sport except for football. Football is the only outlying sport here where we're facing the suburban schools. But Savannah comes down, and they're in our district every year as well. So Benton and Lafayette, they fluctuate between Class 3 and Class 4. When I first came here, we were having some battles with Lafayette and going to overtime every year, and the district first rounds. So.
Where do we stand? I feel like we're at the bottom of that Class 4. When would you go to Class 3? Like, how's our points, like you mentioned, or?
It's all based on enrollment. And like I said, with that championship factor, when schools get pushed up, it forces other schools down. I don't think that we're going to drop to Class 3. I really don't. I really don't.
At the end of the day, it's the safety of the kids. So, being at the football games and stuff, you see that, and then the parents and stuff talking to you. That's what really starts getting to you when you made that decision to switch, and then there's a kid that got hurt.
Suburban Conference play is different. I mean, it's then.
And the middle school, like you said, it's just.
The middle school is my biggest concern.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, when you're playing sizes of teams, and you got kids, in some cases, our kids haven't been playing for as long, or had as many, citywide opportunities. A lot of cases our middle school football, for example, is the first time they played. So where's the learning when you're getting, pummeled?
All right, we need to make a decision.
Move to approve.
No, second.
This is motion.
If you guys didn't ask for an approval, this was just a
Just
presentation.
discussion.
Just discussion. Yeah.
When would you need your approval by, Mr. Marshall?
Sorry about that.
Next month would be great. Whichever way you guys decide to go. If you want me to look into something else, I can look into something else. We're just limited on our options, our directions we can go. We really are. We're too big for KCI. They would never let us come in, and those are the local schools that Lawson's in. They would laugh at us if we asked for an invitation. Sometimes there's some worth in being wanted.
Coach,
So,
just as the only, I presume I'm the only former head coach in the room. So you said something that just hit me me, obviously I was in Park Hill, having to drive through the city to get to a competition and all the things that can happen driving through the city. And it's, as opposed to just, we used to go up and play St. Joe, you just hop on I-29 and you're there. They're not apples to apples. Those are two completely different travel experiences for kids, for drivers. I think, if you're talking about going back to our old conference and playing all those and going that far south, as opposed to just being able to play these games, I think it's kind of a no-brainer.
Well, and some of our coaches will need to see some of those schools.
Yeah, sure.
And depending on how the success factor of those teams. Obviously, our soccer's been amazing lately. They're gonna want to go face the Van Horns. Van Horn is a tremendous soccer program. They're gonna want to go south and play them.
We had a situation where we were the only team within the road. Oh my gosh, it's just true. Yeah, I think.
This is a non-sports related, but activities related. So our robotics and our other activities that we provide for our students, do they play at these similar schools?
Our speech debate, our theater, that there's a conference for that. Robotics is an organization where we play everyone.
Yeah, I'm not saying conference. I'm saying, do we play similar schools? These similar schools in those activities. You answered the question. There was a back-end comment over here that I was just responding to.
All right. Appreciate the info. Come back next month.
Hey, I also want to remind you tell you, we are going to host 3 winter districts this year. Michigan did split speech and debate. So we're going to host a speech district tournament, March the 7th and 8th. We're also going to host the girls basketball district tournament, and that is the 6th, 7th, and 8th, I believe. And for the 42nd consecutive year, we're going to host the district boys wrestling tournament.
How many years?
42. 42. So that's pretty impressive, and the guys got to figure it out. So thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks, sir.
All right, next up is the approval of the 25-26 school year calendar. Dr. Miller.
I can't see you guys anymore, so hi. So this calendar was an interesting one. I will tell you that DESE changed the requirements, and we knew that this was going to happen. They actually went from amount of hours that you had to have, and they switched it to days. So we currently have, as a hiring incentive, our district has a very limited amount of days in a shorter amount of time, so that we currently go 162 days. DESE made it a requirement that we had to do a minimum of 169 days to receive all of the funding that was on the table. So I will tell you a little background about my experience with the calendar committee. Not the calendar committee, with the calendar itself. Dr. Tomlinson did this for years. I complained one time about the number of PD days and the amount that I was getting, and that's how I became the calendar committee representative. So, lesson learned on that. This is also, what I will tell you, one of my least favorite things to do. It's tons of numbers, and it's a lot of restrictions, and just not a lot of ability to change and move a lot of things around. So, spoke with Dr. Bolmore, because this is really his calendar next year. He said, I want you to add 9 days to the calendar without adding any teacher additional days and without adding any student contact days. And I was like, well, wouldn't we all like that? That is pretty impressive. So I started and I tried, and I sat down with one of my favorite thinking partners, Mr. Ben Ruby, and we came up with the most obnoxious calendars you've ever seen in your life, trying to come up with a way to preserve those days. I appreciated the challenge. We don't want our staff working any additional days because it's not like we're going to be able to pay them for those extra 9 days. So finally got it down to 169 days in the calendar. We didn't add any extra staff contact days. It really worked itself out where we're not asking our staff to do any extra things. Our current teacher days remain the same, which was really the big challenge. In order to do that, so one of the rules that was kind of manipulated to create this calendar, it counts as a school day if a student shows up at all. So that counts as one calendar day. So what we did was we took the second Friday in each month, and you'll see that there, and turned it into a half day of professional development. So instead of having full day PDs, what we did with the majority of our professional development is instead of 1 day, now we took that 1 day and turned it into a half day. Spent a lot more time than I traditionally do talking to our calendar committee. They were thrilled with the idea of meeting. Under this, professional development now can occur once a month. That was my original complaint with Dr. Tomlinson, is we would have so much time from one date to the next, or maybe like this year, for example, we had 2 PD days in January, and then we had one additional one like the second week in February, and then that's it until August. And so with this new calendar, we looked at everything. We wanted to make teachers happy, wanted to give students everything that they need, and wanted to make parents happy as well. Switching those to those half days was really the answer that we did that. The teachers overwhelmingly gave them an opportunity to say, you know, what are some negotiables and some non-negotiables. Believe it or not, they chose, they're like, make us work Thanksgiving Day, but please don't ever end the last day of the semester and the last day of school on a full day ever again. Like, it's just too, you should have seen their faces on the last day of first semester. It was straight up survival mode. So that was the most important thing, is please have a half day to end each semester. Really overall, another thing that we decided to do, and this was actually at my request, was add an additional day to new teacher training. So new teachers come in for those first 4 days, and then we follow it with everybody else shows up for convocation and all of the things that you're used to seeing. That had been 3 days. With the amount of new teachers that we're having, it just has to be 4 now. So literally, I'm planning on leading 1 full day of just classroom management, how to set up expectations and stuff in the classroom before the students ever get there. That's a hard thing for principals to be able to fit into, along with the additional things that they have to train their new staff on. So that's one of the biggest things, is moving that day to 4 days. Teachers like 3-day weekends spread out so that they don't murder the children and they can go home and recoup. So there are some specific 3-day weekends that are outlined so teachers can actually have those breaks. There's a full 2 weeks at Christmas, which they always insist on having 2 weeks, and I agree completely with that as well.
No more 3.
What's that?
No more 3 weeks?
This will be the last year that we do 3 weeks.
Sorry.
The kids, after 3 weeks on that first day, I was at Lewis, and they were ready to crawl in a hole and go to sleep around 11:30. They had no stamina to get through a full school day. It was pretty cute, yeah. So any questions about this? This is really entirely different than anything we've ever done. Again, part of it is because of the creativity it took to really work this calendar without adding any additional contract days to our teachers' already busy schedules. That was top priority. I did end up losing 1 PD day. I typically have 11, and it went down to 10. But I'm the first one, as Dr. Tomlinson will tell you, to complain about the amount of PD days that I have. I think this is going to be better. I think this is spread out in a way to where it's going to be more effective anyway. I have 11 days now, and like I said, the last one is in February, which just is not good for teachers. So yeah, I'll take questions. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we're looking for an approval for next year's calendar.
I may have missed it,
Yeah. I did, I apologize. Is spring break so late in the month of March?
So that actually was a conference decision. So we base spring break basically off of, this is Ben's fault, off the Career Center so that they can all align. It's actually really smart because they chose that week because it butts up next to Easter. It just happens to be that way. When I first wrote the calendar initially, it's almost always that third week. That's why it's different this week, is they went ahead, instead of giving 2 breaks back to back, they just moved the calendar. Good question.
All right, any other questions for Dr. Miller?
I love your creativity.
I wish I would do a bad job, so Mark would not make me do this every
So the
year.
half-day PD, is that no school for students?
So the half-day PD days, students go a half day, and the remaining half day is going to be with teachers. Yeah.
I think maybe the bottom half of your line should have been blue and then green.
You know what? How many revisions do I typically do this? I remember last year I forgot to add leap year. 1 month had 32 days. I mean, this is the reason that, yeah, I show it to 1 million people. Nobody notices.
No matter what you mess up, you can't get rid of it.
I know. I show it to 1 million people. Nobody notices a single error until after the board approves it. So it's always how it goes.
I'm just thinking by having that PD, each month set aside like February date is your last one this year. I think about when you're doing math training with staff. Gosh, I'm looking there at April, whatever, 10th, 10. That'd be a good time for me to get some math training. I don't know, it just...
So the one thing that I will say that poses a challenge is that if I bring somebody in, let's say I bring KCR PDC, typically, or a new resource, if they come in and provide training, we're flying somebody in and they typically want to add 1 day, but I still have that day in January that we can utilize in the days at the beginning. So I feel like there's enough room in the schedule to be able to work that. The principals are thrilled with this, to be able to provide more opportunities. It's just overall, I think, going to be better for our teachers and our kids.
I will tell you this, I like this calendar and how you have PD on Fridays. A lot of districts have gone to Mondays. So with KCR PDC, guess what day every district wants us in?
Yeah.
Monday. And a lot of times we have to say no because we're already booked.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're double booked. We're someplace in the morning, someplace in the afternoon.
That decision was actually made with parents in mind. If you have a 2.5 day weekend basically for your kids, and I wanted to keep it the second Friday to try to get some memory for parents. Yeah, and so I think it's easier for parents to be able to take off a half day on Friday than try to remember its random days throughout the month. So that's why Friday was chosen.
All right, entertain a motion to approve the 25-26 school year calendar.
So moved.
First by Jill.
Second.
Second by Kaylin. Any more comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? That passes 7-0.
Okay. Hopefully Scott Gilkey will have a good time presenting us next year too. So.
All right, you're still up for the APR review.
Okay, for your viewing pleasure, I've split this up over 2 months. The first part of it, I'm going to give you MAP and EOC. When I return in February, I'm going to share STAR data and really some APR stuff. I typically do it all together, and with no offense, but you guys glaze over after about 10 or 15 minutes of looking at graphs. And so we're going to keep this just with MAP and EOC, and then I'll be back next month to talk about growth and STAR data and some of the individualized reports that we have. So the one thing that I want to talk to you about, and again, I'm focusing specifically on MAP and EOC data, is the purpose of an assessment. And that's one of the things that I think we discuss as an administrative team all the time. There is a cost to every assessment, and I'm not talking about financially. The cost of every assessment is the time that they're not learning. So every time that you're taking time away from anything and a kid is focusing on an assessment, a teacher's not teaching as a kid is testing. The MAP test is probably one of the biggest learning losses that we have because it takes so much time to get through. I do want to say that the state has kind of heard us complain for, 30 years or however long they've done it. They're trying out a new model, they're calling them testlets, where they're breaking the map up and then offering them at various times. There's some pilot schools working on that. I see some potential challenges with that. One of the biggest challenges that basically everyone is going to have to follow the same scope and sequence at the time. I don't look for a big change anytime soon. But they do recognize that it's a huge expense for academics, and both in time and cost. The purpose of any assessment, primary purpose, and I can hear the administrators saying it, is to inform instruction. So you want real-time information to where a teacher can pivot at any given time to give a kid what they need. So you've got your daily pivots, like in the form of an exit ticket, or did my lesson go okay? And then you have unit tests, you've got quizzes, you've got exit tickets, all of the things. Currently in place, we have STAR assessment, and that happens every 2 months that we do, where I'm tracking reading and math. There's common assessments, but everything is to inform instruction. The reason that I tell you this is because the MAP assessment, it's hard to inform instruction when I can't even tell you guys about it until December of the following year. So I get preliminary information and make my best guesses as to how I want to tweak the curriculum for the following year based in preliminary data that comes out in June. So pretty much it's me coming up with, here's what I think that we should do. I will tell you that I barely looked at MAP data because I was blessed with enough STAR data to be able to inform the majority of my decisions in a way that I feel was much more relevant than waiting on MAP and EOC. So with that in mind, I'm going to share MAP and EOC. Next week, I'm going to share STAR, which really focuses on growth. Okay, let's see. So I'll start with ELA. So you can see here, this is 22, 23, and 24. ELA, as you know, at the elementary level, we started Wit and Wisdom last year. So some things to consider is with that, Wit and Wisdom is 4 units. It pretty much coincides with the 4 quarters. We only covered 3 of them. So keep in mind that we knew this going in, that the program is so intense that teachers really had to learn it and figure out along with the students. So we only covered 3/4 of the material. That's just that's cost of doing business with any new program. So also you're going to have, and I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about this, you're going to have an implementation dip. I refuse to believe this, and I'm disappointed like every time I see it. And Dr. Tomlinson says, Kenny, what are you doing?
Kenny said he would like to hear more about this implementation.
Well, Kenny, I'm so glad. Your enthusiasm is overwhelming. Hey.
Yeah. You don't get workers' comp, you're not an employee.
You can get some ice on your head after this presentation.
What'd you do, Kenny?
Mom.
So in 2022, you can see 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. That's the black bar. The reason that I show you this is it's the most important data that I can share with anyone is cohort data. So different groups of kids have different levels of skill. That's just the way that it goes. And I'll show you with our elementary breakdown, completely different grades are performing at completely different levels in each building based on the cohort of kids that they have. If I track cohort, with the exception of 5th grade, which I have some concerns that I'll talk about in a second, they're growing. They're actually getting bigger. So don't be confused about the graph going up and down because they're different groups of kids within that year, if that makes sense. Okay, so here is the data that I was telling you about. This is this year's map, which is 2024 in May. These are the different building levels and how we compare to the state. One of the things that I will tell you is that our district as a whole, as well as most districts in the state, tend to dip in 5th grade and 6th grade. The content gets a little bit more difficult. The kids get a little bit more difficult. So that's always probably my #1 concern is that 5th grade dip. In addition, we had a lot of teachers transition out of our 5th grade group this year. A lot. Keep in mind also that we had 30% of the teachers that were versed in wit and wisdom, they moved to a different grade level that time. So attrition is always something. So I do want to give a shout out to Elkhorn Elementary. With STAR data, it is almost spot on in predicting how a kid will do on the map. It gives incredible data and it will tell you how they're doing. I want to point out that the 4th grade kids at Elkhorn, they far even outperformed on the map test according to what that STAR data was going to say. I'm typically not surprised in the positive, and so this was really refreshing and a super good celebration for those Elkhorn kiddos. But you can see by looking at this, there isn't one building that's excelling, you know, across the board in each grade level, and that is because different cohorts. It's a lot. The group of the kids, they have different teachers, a lot of things that factor into that. So secondary ELA, I lost both 6th grade ELA teachers last year. So they knew that they were leaving. I will say 6th grade typically will have a dip on the map as well. I will also point out that I use the word abysmal, probably lightly. That's a giant concern. Wit and wisdom is at the middle school now. That's kind of one of the things that we've remedied with the middle school. Everyone is implementing that. The teachers have been incredible at adopting it. I know Annalisa is taking amazing care of that and having the teachers go through that. It's also been really easy, I don't want to say easy because it's a very challenging program, but being able to use the elementary the way we did that and being able to kind of use them as the guinea pig has really helped the middle school get that off of the ground as well. You can see in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, we got to get those scores up, and I really do think that wit and wisdom is the way to do that. It's increasing the rigor and the things that we're being able to see the kids do specifically in writing has been phenomenal. English 1 and English 2, our people exceed state average pretty much every year. They're doing a very good job, very good job. This is just some representation over, I laid out, the black line is state, and then the gold line is us. Again, 5th and 6th grade. As a district, as far as looking at the data for years, that's pretty typical that we dip down in 5th and 6th grade, so that's something that we're working on continually. So, and then we are pretty much in line with state average, which is the minimum bar that I would ever set for our district. And by minimum, I'm not going to celebrate state average. I'm just going to tell you we're state average, and then we'll push harder.
Dr. Miller?
Yeah.
Question. The gap you talked about, the kind of 5th grade gap.
Right here?
Right. Longitudinally over time, do the kids typically catch up in high school?
Look, so you can tell by looking at English 1 and English 2, they start out in 3rd grade very strong.
Right.
4th grade is equally as strong. It dips a little bit. 5th grade, they take a dive. One of the things that I've challenged elementary principals, I don't want to say we have weak teachers anywhere, but typically I think the train of thought is K1-2 is when you teach a kid how to read. And so you tend to put your more tenured teachers in K1-2 and your newer teachers in lower grades. I don't want to say anything about teaching elementary is easy in any way, but we're trying to flip that mentality to continue the rigor in the push in 4th and 5th grade. Another thing that I will tell you about, Troy, is that 3rd grade is really the cutoff for if a kid is going to get a resource and help in learning how to read. It is so hard to get them caught up in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. One of the things that I know that my department has worked very hard on is bringing those interventions, really kind of doubling down on our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students. I made a very unpopular decision to place title teachers in 3rd grade. They thought I was crazy. They didn't want to do it. They're used to working with 1st grade teachers. But our first grade teachers are equipped to teach 1st graders how to read. Our 4th and 5th grade teachers are not equipped to teach 4th and 5th grade students how to read. They're trained in 4th and 5th grade. It's just much more difficult. And so I kind of flipped that on its head. Looking at our title teachers are doing a phenomenal job. You can look at their scores. They're making such an impact at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, where they're actually, and another thing that I changed is they wanted to hang on to each kid until they achieved mastery. And I was like, you're never gonna see a kid at mastery. You're getting them to a point where they can handle it back in the classroom. So they've embraced that. I think they see the method to my madness on that, and we are just graduating kids like crazy. Title's doing an incredible job. Yeah.
And you might already be doing this, and I don't know that, but some vertical conversations between middle school ELA and your English 1 and 2 teachers about strategies and things maybe they have in place that they would share. I mean, we're lifelong learners. We always put things in our toolkits, and if they're doing something that's pretty powerful, it looks like we should share those. I don't know.
So a couple things on that. One of the things that we do at English 1 and English 2 that has been very successful is we co-teach it with social studies. They have the option to not do that, and what I have seen is that the rigor went crazy whenever they combined it with social studies. What we did with Wit and Wisdom at the elementary level is we co-teach that as well because the model has worked so well for English 1 and English 2. It's my hope that we start to bring that to middle school. The social studies teachers are already very essay focused, writing focused, and this is brand new. I just had a conversation about this, but we are going to, are you familiar with Aspire training? Have you heard? So we are going to be sending middle school teachers to get Aspire training. And not just ELA, but I'm going to send social studies teachers to learn so that they can teach the kids how to read as well. So there's a plan in place for every single thing that is coming our way. It's hard to see it in math and EOC data because it's an autopsy of what I can't, it really is hard data to work with. But yeah, I'm excited for those changes, yeah. Okay, so here are, I forgot where I was here. Math. Did I talk about math yet? I'm going to talk about math. So third grade again, this is third grade 2022, 2023, and 2024. So again, if you look at this high achieving kids, they're here next year. But look at fifth grade the next year. That's always my concern is fifth grade tends to have a giant drop. And so giving our fifth grade teachers kind of some more strategies and abilities to teach those kids. Between fourth and fifth grade, if they're not mastering it in fifth grade, it continues through sixth grade. So that's what we're focusing on in curriculum. The math and EOC, I will tell you, does give me some information on how to inform curriculum. If you look by elementary school, again, it's complete cohort success. And some teachers are brand new, have never done it before, and some teams we have veteran teachers. I mean, this is not an apples to apples situation, but I do think that there's a lot of power in being able to look at that and make decisions in teaming, what teachers you want to put together, what teachers you want to move around. So that's third, fourth, and fifth. So there's a lot to talk about here in secondary math. Sixth grade, seventh grade, they have a lot to work on, and we continue to work on that. In eighth grade, and I mentioned this to you, do you remember how for years, Algebra 1 scores, if an eighth grader took Algebra 1, the scores counted towards the high school, towards EOC. So the state had originally said, we want eighth grade scores to stay with eighth grade this year. People complained because longitudinally, it's that much harder to make a decision on if your eighth grade program is working or if your Algebra 1 program is working. Specific to our middle school, Dr. Kaufman opened up to any seventh grader that wanted to take eighth grade Algebra 1, they could take eighth grade Algebra 1. So there are some decisions that factor into this. It's my philosophy, if a kid wants to challenge themselves and take Algebra 1, we don't stop them. If they want the rigor and they want the push and they want the challenge, we push them forward to that. If they don't make it at semester, they have the option to go back into eighth grade. If for some reason they're not being successful, there's an opportunity to go back into eighth grade. What we are seeing is that the kids who took that semester of Algebra 1 are far outperforming the kids in eighth grade math. I'm breaking things here, sorry. The eighth grade scores that you see here, We actually had 0 8th graders score proficient and advanced because of the algebra. They moved it back because everyone complained, and it's like, give us a break here. Like, we can't ever keep track of the data. So that's why you're seeing, that's actually an inaccurate thing. I wanted to put a little bit of yellow on it because it's actually 0 of the kids. That is unacceptable. I don't want to make an excuse for that. We want every 8th grader to be proficient in 8th grade math. In a response, what we're doing this year as opposed to last year to address that is every 8th grader takes 1 semester of 8th grade math, and then we're directly moving them into pre-algebra. So because algebra was so successful at their 8th grade math scores, and what they're showing us is that they're just not ready with the basic facts and the ability to perform well in Algebra 1 when they get to the high school. So we're actually teaching them pre-algebra at that 8th grade year. We don't currently have a pre-algebra class anymore. You either jump into algebra or you go from 8th grade. So I'm hoping that's going to make a difference for next year. Again, this is, there's a lot to talk about and a lot to break out. And I did some spot checking on other districts, and many other districts also have 0 in their proficient and advanced. It's just how the numbers played out, and it's always going to be that 8th grade group that splits into your kids that all of your high schoolers go to Algebra 1. And so it is nice because then your 8th grade teachers can really focus on getting those kids pushed. But I know Dr. Kaufman is working on that, along with Dr. Weesey. I think she's doing that. We are also having grade level meetings that are being led by our instructional leaders, the assistant principals and the principals, and it's making all the difference as well. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about science scores. Science is the first actual cycle that we've had the opportunity to go. So this is the first subject where we actually got to put teachers in a cohort, pull them out 3 separate times a year, work with an instructional coach, develop, write curriculum, pick a resource based on standards that they aligned. This is the first time that we got to do this the way it's supposed to be done after we spent that first 3 years building that foundation. This is how I expect the bar graph to look. And I'm confident that it will continue to increase and go crazy. Science is a passion of mine because the more science a kid knows, the more background knowledge they have, and the better reader they become. Same thing goes with social studies. Our science scores historically as a district have just absolutely been deplorable. Our elementary teachers really just weren't finding the time to be able to do it because their days are so packed. There's a plan maybe to utilize some of those half days to do some creative things with science at the elementary level. And I know that Dr. Wickham and I have really discussed at great detail kind of how everyone, K-12, can improve biology scores. Any questions so far? This is where we're at as far as this year. It is my hope that Lewis is doing amazing work with science. It's my hope that we exceed, this will be the first year in a very long time that elementary exceeds state standards in science. Biology, again, is a challenge that we're looking at to fix. Barriers to academics, I will tell you that attendance, student attendance, if they're not there, we can't teach them. Staffing, if I lose 30% of teachers, it is just Groundhog Day every year where we're starting over and teaching the resource and learning it. So I'm so thankful that you guys are taking the time to bring a levy vote up to our people to try to get teachers to stay here and make this a good place to work, even though we just won an award. Yeah. Classroom management. I know Dr. Everett is working very hard on PBIS, and I think that, especially at the middle school level, we're seeing huge results from that. Legislation, I am at the mercy of DESE. That's just how it works. Whatever they say we have to do, or they won't give us any money, and that's just the long and short of it. Virtual learning, we still are losing kids to virtual learning, that they don't go here. It's always a concern of mine. A lot of that money goes with them at the virtual learning. We are not losing the amount of kids that I had feared that we would. It really has kind of maintained, and what we're seeing is a lot of the kids that were not successful within our district. They go to a virtual opportunity, and then after a semester, the virtual school calls us and says, hey, we're sending them back. They didn't do anything for us either. And then building changes, I will say, I will speak for Jill. She just wants a normal year where she can actually put kids in a normal situation where we can test them and assess them and find out how well they're doing. I do not think that they are getting the credit that they deserve for the learning that's actually happening, because they have just been in chaos for the last 3 years. So they're not moving, and so next year they're going to be thrilled that they get to stay there in a normal classroom that's not a trailer. So any questions at all?
The STAR data,
Yep.
folks who don't, that's nationally norm referenced?
Nationally norm referenced.
Is it now state norm referenced as well?
So it is aligned to Common Core. 90% of our state standards are aligned to Common Core, whether you would have a politician admit that or not. They really are aligned to Common Core. They do have a Missouri, we're set up to follow a Missouri standard. You can pick that within STAR, and they match it as close as they possibly can. Honestly, between STAR and MAP data, it is as close as you can get. I didn't believe them, but after that first year, it really is super close. Yep, good question.
What do you anticipate, if I recall right, the 6th grade class
Which subject?
was, call it ELA.
Okay.
Was lower, and now you put wit and wisdom at the middle school.
Yes.
So are you anticipating to see a dip in the middle school, like cohorts, as they move their way through because of the teachers being on wit and wisdom?
So there's 2 things to consider. One, I know that Dr. Tomlinson is smiling at me because I should expect a dip, even though I will be mad when I see one. In addition to that, the only people in the classroom that are new to wit and wisdom is the teacher. The kids came from 5th grade from the previous year, so I don't know that we will see the dip that we had experienced. Another thing is that 6th grade is so low that I really do think that they're going to go up. I really think that they're going to go up. And the middle school administrators are nodding their heads at me too. So.
And then it'll also be interesting to see if the 5th graders who have had wit and wisdom under their belt a little bit longer, as they roll into becoming the new 6th graders, if they perhaps might score higher.
That's my hope, is they've done it before, yeah.
A little bit more time with the teachers next year, the teachers being on wit and wisdom, and then students. 3 years? Those students will be 3 years on wit and wisdom, I think, at that point, next year?
Yes. So, well, it will be their 3rd year, the beginning of their 3rd year. But it's been kind of comical at the 6th grade. We've got 2 brand new teachers teaching 6th grade, and it's really worked out because the kids are telling them how to teach it. They're like, this is how you do this. Like, there's specific things that are set up in the same way. So every year that we get through that, like, the kids get better at it than the teachers do. The rigor is high, and so you do, 7th and 8th grade is going through, like, why are you pushing us so hard? This is too hard. The teachers kind of go through it as well. In 5th grade or 6th grade, really the kids didn't complain about it because they had it the year before. And the 6th grade, the 2 brand new 6th grade teachers are doing a very good job, like pushing the rigor. Yeah.
And then on the foundation funding that we have, like the new equation that we're on, how do these scores impact that, and what do we think that's going to look like for us for?
Good question. So next month I'm going to go over our APR scores and how this affected APR. I did that for Kenny because he's already knocking things off the wall.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hopefully we get something new next.
Yeah, next up is Mr. Marshall. Approval of the Daktronics report.
He's not.
Who's new this evening?
No, he's already done it.
Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
Wearing the same clothes.
When we got our stadium football scoreboard this past year, I traveled all over to this city and looked for sponsorships, and I got told no a lot, and that's okay, and I appreciate that. And we filled almost all of our sponsorship opportunities. About 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call out of the blue from Farmer State Bank. Vice President is Brad McBee. And he was asking me how to get on the scoreboard, and he wanted to be up top. And I go, well, you can't be up top because those are full. So we started talking about being an anchor partner, and I just started thinking really quickly, and I said that I think I might have an opportunity that you may be interested in, and I just kind of threw out the idea. Our softball and our baseball scoreboards are about 19 years old. We host districts in softball 2 years ago. We host districts last year in softball or in baseball, and I think we'll probably continue to host because of the turf and the durability there. But when the wind blows too hard, the scoreboards go blank. They've been beat up, they're old, and they're outdated. So I said, Mr. McBee, would you consider buying us a new softball and a new baseball scoreboard? Half joking, but half serious. He requested that he go talk to his bosses, and he came back and he goes, yeah, I want to do that. And so the bid was about $35,000 for both scoreboards. He would pay back the district, what it would require the district to front the money, to be paid back over the next 5 years by Farmers State Bank. So to me, we're getting 2 brand new scoreboards, and it's not costing us anything. It makes sense to me. We would give them exclusive rights to advertisement up there. That we put for 5 years. We'll do a contract with them. He called me up over Christmas break. He goes, hey, can we do this? I go, no, we can't do this. I have to talk to my board first. So with that being said, I would ask the board to consider this proposal for 2 brand new scoreboards for our softball and our baseball facilities. With that being said as well, we are adding the softball scoreboard is beat up pretty bad because of PE and home run derbies and all this stuff. So they do have advancements on some netting that we're going to put on both scoreboards to help protect them even more than what they are. So with that being said, I would ask you guys to approve this proposal.
Do we have a motion to approve? So first by Troy. Do we have a second? Second by Aaron. Any questions? Comments?
I'm assuming there'll be a contract and a payment schedule and all the things, right?
All the things.
But is somebody writing the contract beyond just someone in the central office to make sure that we have all the legal components? Because I've seen some of the anchor contracts, and just to ensure that we don't say yes today and then in 3 years they tap out.
We get those contracts from Daktronics, and so we just customize them to our district, so it'll be very similar to those contracts. If they were to opt out, they have a signed contract, we can take legal action if we need to. But it'll be on there, and we'll have specific dates set on there, whatever he's decided with Farmer State Bank that they can do that. But that's a contract we get through Daktronics that they've used through legal and that we get approved, so we could take legal action on those if we wanted to or needed to.
Is there an opportunity to secure half of it up front and then pay out the remaining over 5 years?
That I don't know. That would be
His marketing, what I'm going to give is $8,000 a year for 5 years. Is what his marketing budget is through the Farmers State Bank.
That covers that's the 40 grand covers everything. The netting.
Covers the scoreboards.
Can you talk about that? There's a difference between the 35 you spoke about earlier and the 40 they're paying. Can you tell the difference, what they're getting with that $5,000, what that covers too?
The extra?
Yeah.
We're going to give them an opportunity to be on within the stadium as well as
an advertising sponsor.
As an advertising sponsor as well.
So they're paying a little extra to also have additional advertising going on elsewhere. That's why there was a difference in those numbers in case you're curious.
Correct.
And unlike the other boards that we put up, we don't foresee any like landscaping costs and they're gonna slide in where it's gonna be more than 35,000.
Our existing structures there, it's going to be as simple as the company will come in, they will remove the existing, and the existing iron will be hung right there. So that's one of the reasons it's not costing us as much. We're going basically the same size, and it's a pull down, replace, plug in, play. So also, one of my deals as activities director was trying to align all of our scoreboards to the same company. If you look around our district, we've got 5 different companies from 5 different scoreboard companies. So if the gym breaks down, we got to call Fairplay. If the softball sport breaks, we got to call, we're calling Nevco, we're calling all these different places. Whereas if we can start aligning what we're buying on scoreboards, we pick up the phone, we're talking to the same person every time. And I think that's good for us. I think it's good to align who we're using. When we hire people to come work our games, we don't have to teach them every time. This is a different system. Here, learn this system. When I hire Allison Newman to come work a basketball game or a volleyball game or a softball game, it's the same controller. It's basically an iPad. It's like playing a game. It's what it is. It's really nice. There's no more controller. It's an iPad.
All right. Hearing no other questions, all those in favor? Opposed? That passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. That wraps up tonight's meeting, and at this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. First by Troy. Second. Second by Ken. All those in favor? That passes 7-0. Have a good evening. Thanks for coming out.